Glimpses of Sahadža Yoga in William Blake's paintings. Part 2. Dedicated to Her Holiness Sri Mataji Nirmala Devi, founder of Sahadža Yoga. In Part 1 of Glimpses of Sahadža Yoga in William Blake's paintings, we already looked at some obvious Sahaj motifs that appear in Blake's paintings. We covered topics such as paintings where Blake shows people feeling the vibrations in their hands, putting their hands above the sasrara, stars or angels above the sasrara, etc. Here, in Part 2, we will continue with the same theme, but this time we will look at paintings by William Blake about chakras, deities, spirals, and the Kundalini. We did not know there were so many Sahadža Yoga motifs in Blake's paintings until Sri Mataji showed us. She held a book of paintings of William Blake in her hand and told us to feel the vibrations coming from the paintings of William Blake, and showed us all the many motifs of Sahadža Yoga within Blake's paintings. This took place at Sri Mataji's residence in London, 1984. There were several Sahaj Yogis present. According to Sri Mataji, some writings of William Blake are all about Sahaj Yoga, and Blake is a great prophet of Sahadža Yoga. Table of Contents. Chapter 1. William Blake's prophecies about Sahadža Yoga. Chapter 2. About chakras. Chapter 3. 7 chakras and 7 deities. Chapter 4. Spirals and Kundalini. Please note, all the paintings, sketches and engravings in this slideshow are by William Blake. Chapter 1. William Blake's prophecies about Sahadža Yoga. 2 extracts from Her Holiness Sri Mataji's lectures. First extract. This is the blossom time, which has already been prophesied by William Blake. Second extract. Nobody could be more precise than Blake. He was so great to say this will happen, and this is what we have to expect. William Blake could see hundreds of years back the workings of Sahadža Yoga, and today we can see the actualization. An extract from Sri Mataji's lectures. William Blake prophesied that men of God would become prophets and would have powers to make others prophets. In a prophetic book entitled Milton, a poem in 2 books, Blake wrote his famous hymn Jerusalem, starting with the well-known lines seen at the top of this picture. And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green? Looking to the very bottom of the picture, in Blake's handwriting we can read the biblical quote, "Would to God that all the Lord's people were prophets," and Blake gives us the reference. He has written Numbers, 11th chapter, 29th verse. This picture is entitled The First Sight of the Spiritual World It is an early drawing by William Blake featuring the prophet Moses, whom we can see standing, and his disciple Joshua, kneeling beside Moses. In the book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 29, Moses says to his disciple Joshua, "Would to God that all the Lord's people were prophets." In a modern Bible, this translates as, "I wish the Lord would give his spirit to all his people so that everyone could be a prophet." As we saw previously, this last line of the hymn Jerusalem, as written by Blake, is a line not set to music and therefore never sung. If we read chapter 11 of Numbers, we get the full story of a rare occurrence when a prophet, Moses, makes others prophets. In fact, Moses created 70 prophets at the same time by giving them an experience of en masse self-realization. William Blake prophesied that men of God would become prophets. Blake foresaw that the building of the New Jerusalem in England would take place through en masse self-realization. Note in the picture, the lady is touching the Sahasrara of the central figure, and the whole scene is set in a Stonehenge-like landscape in England. In the blossom time of Sahadža Yoga, the seekers of truth, the men of God, are getting realization en masse. They are becoming prophets, and they have powers to make others prophets, meaning that they can give self-realization to others. This painting is plate number 100, the last page of a long poem by William Blake entitled Jerusalem, the Emanation of the Giant Albion. A Sahadža Yoga meeting of self-realization in India. The seekers of truth are getting their self-realization en masse in England and all over the world, as prophesied by William Blake. Sri Mataji talks about William Blake's prophecies of Sahadža Yoga in several of her lectures. For example, in 1980, Sri Mataji said, "And to understand why London and why England, you better read Milton by William Blake. He has prophesied that England is going to be the Jerusalem, that it is going to be the pilgrimage. He has described everything that is Sahadža Yoga. It's a wonderful prophecy. You better read it to understand. It is even described where the ashram would be, in Lambeth Vale. He has described that first it will start in Surrey Hills, where I first came and stayed. And he has described in the end how the Virgin herself is going to work it out, how the Mother is going to work it out. It's all beautifully done. You had such a great poet like Blake, who has already guided you. Better take guidance from him." William Blake's prophecy mentioned by Sri Mataji about the Surrey Hills and Lambeth's Vale comes from Milton, a poem by William Blake, plate 4 of copy A. Blake writes, "The Surrey Hills glow like the clinkers of the furnace. Lambeth's Vale, where Jerusalem's foundations began, where they were laid in ruins, from every nation and oak groves rooted. Dark gleams before the furnace mouth, a heap of burning ashes. When shall Jerusalem return and overspread all the nations? Return, return to Lambeth's Vale, O building of human souls. In Jerusalem, plate 41, lines 15 to 21, we see that for Blake, Lambeth is a sacred place, a temple or an ashram. Could it be the temple within, the sacrum bone or the kundalini? Could it be all of them? In Blake's mythology, Uthun is the young virgin, therefore she is comparable to Sri Gauri or to the kundalini. Blake writes, "There is a grain of sand in Lambeth that Satan cannot find, nor can his watch fiends find it. It is translucent and has many angles, but he who finds it will find Uthun's palace, for within, opening into Bula, every angle is a lovely heaven. But should the watch fiends find it, they would call it sin, and lay its heavens and their inhabitants in blood of punishment. Here, Jerusalem and Vala were hid in soft slumberous repose." On plate 84, lines 1 to 4, of Jerusalem, there is another reference to Lambeth as a place for building a temple, and for the beginning of the foundations in Lambeth. Blake writes, "Highgate Heights and Hampsteads, to Poplar, Hackney and Bow, to Islington and Paddington, and the brook of Albion's river, we builded Jerusalem as a city and a temple. From Lambeth we began our foundations, lovely Lambeth." Building the first temple or ashram of Sahadža Yoga in the UK is equivalent to establishing the foundations of Sahadža Yoga. Such a temple or ashram was rebuilt in the borough of Lambeth, at Chelsham Road in southwest London. Chapter 2. About Chakras. Christ vibrating the Agnya chakra. Blake's vision of Christ interceding on behalf of Adam and Eve during their expulsion from paradise. A finger on the Agnya chakra. This is one of Blake's illustrations to Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. Here, Christian is met by the three shining ones. The three shining ones are like Trigunat Mikar. Note the ego balloon and the Hamsa chakra in this caricature. In fact, this is a caricature of William Blake by Blake himself. Christ sitting in the Agnya chakra. This picture is famously known as the Ancient of Days, a reference to Christ as the Alpha and the Omega. Sri Mataji commented about this painting. Christ is in the Agnya chakra, pushing down the ego and superego of mankind. The baby Jesus sitting on the Agnya chakra and pushing down the ego and superego. This illustration is an allusion to the life of Saint Christopher. Saint Christopher used to help travellers cross the river by carrying them on his shoulders. One day the child Jesus appeared to him in disguise and asked to be carried over the river on the shoulders of the saint. Christ as the deity of the Agnya chakra and gateway to the Sahasrara. This painting is called Christ in the Sepulchre Guarded by Angels. The two angels and their raised wings represent the two petals of the Agnya chakra. The archway behind represents the Sahasrara. On Christ's resurrection, the two angels separate, signifying the opening of the Agnya chakra and gateway to the Sahasrara. Catching on the Agnya chakra and on the Rudras. Two theologians arguing about religious dogmas. Catching on the Agnya chakra. The infidel arguing against the immortality of the spirit. Vishuddhi chakra and the myth of guilt. Pulling the ears down to ease the pressure on the Vishuddhi chakra. The heart chakra. Open thy heart. Three angels or three deities in the heart. Blake's illustration to a line of poetry by Edward Young. The opening of the Sahasrara chakra. At length for hatching ripe he breaks the shell. A bird first is born as an egg, and later is reborn as a bird. For this reason, a bird is called twice born in Hindu culture. Similarly, after a disciple gets initiation from his guru, he is called twice born or Dvija. Sri Mataji explained that the reason we give eggs at Easter is to celebrate Christ's rebirth through his resurrection. Here, Blake used the bird, Dvija, newborn image, by painting the baby Jesus with wings as he comes out of the egg. Jesus said, "You must be born again." Opening of the Sahasrara chakra. A confluence of ethereal fires poured down by the deity. In his poem, Edward Young refers to the deity. Looking at the top right of the picture, we can see that Blake depicted the deity as consisting of God the Father, God the Mother, and God the Son. This trio is giving realization to the seeker below. They are pouring down the divine blessings onto the Sahasrara of the seeker. The triangular sacrum bone at the base of the spine. The Assumption of the Virgin Mary, or Sri Gauri, watched over by the baby Jesus or Sri Ganesha. It was understood that the physical body of the Virgin Mary did not suffer from corruption upon death, but ascended to heaven. In this picture, the Virgin Mary stands within a transparent triangle, while the baby Jesus is above within a sphere. Note how Blake shows the Virgin's body set within an inverted triangle, similar to the triangular sacrum bone at the base of the spine. In the Hindu tradition, the sacrum bone corresponds to the chalice or vessel known as kumbha. Sri Mataji teaches that within the sacrum bone resides the dormant kundalini, or Sri Gauri, the Virgin Goddess. In Blake's painting, the Virgin Mary, Sri Gauri, is ascending to heaven, and the baby Jesus, who represents Sri Ganesha, watches over. The Kundalini and the Sacrum Bone. Sir Isaac Newton, studying science at the bottom of the sea. Newton draws a triangle. The paper scroll is like a Kundalini. The sacrum bone, which is the abode of the Kundalini, is represented by the triangle. The Kundalini is outside the triangular area, like a missing link. Newton was unable to decode the puzzle of spiritual life through rational calculations, although he was an intense seeker. At the end of his life, Newton spent almost 20 years applying mathematics to the Book of Revelations, but without success. Chapter 3. 7 Chakras and 7 Deities. The 7 Chakras. A Vision of the Last Judgment by William Blake. The Petworth House version. Starting from the bottom of the painting. 1. Muladhara Chakra, possessed by the dragon of the Apocalypse. 2. Swadhisthana Chakra, possessed by the harlot of the Apocalypse. 3. Nabhi Chakra and V. Void. 4. Heart Chakra. 5. Vishuddhi Chakra. 6. Agnya Chakra. SE, collective superego, and E, collective ego. 7. Sahasrara Chakra. The 7 Chakras. Another version of the Last Judgment by William Blake. The Pollock House version. Starting from the bottom of the painting. 1. Muladhara Chakra, possessed by the dragon of the Apocalypse. 2. Swadhisthana Chakra, possessed by the harlot of the Apocalypse. 3. Nabhi Chakra, possessed by Satan. 4. Heart chakra. 5. Vishuddhi chakra. 6. Agnya chakra. 7. Sahasrara chakra. The 7 Chakras. A sketch of the Last Judgment by William Blake. Starting from the bottom of the painting. 1. Muladhara chakra, possessed by the dragon of the Apocalypse. 2. Swadhisthana chakra, possessed by the harlot of the Apocalypse. 3. Nabhi chakra. 4. Heart chakra. 5. Vishuddhi chakra. 6. Agnya chakra. 7. Sahasrara chakra. Seven chakras or 7 stars. The lady in this illustration represents the woman of the Apocalypse from the biblical book of Revelation, chapter 12, verses 1 to 6. A woman clothed with the sun and the moon at her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. The dragon stood in front of the woman, who was about to give birth. She gave birth to a son. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God. Despite being about to flee, the lady appears to have the dragon under her control. Also notice that Blake has given her 7 stars on the head rather than 12 stars. Seven Chakras and the Tree of Life. The Archangel Gabriel and Zachariah. The Archangel Gabriel announces to Zachariah that he will be a father. His son will be St. John the Baptist, who will announce Jesus as the Christ. Christ is known as the Tree of Life, who came to enlighten the world. Blake has included the golden candelabra, or menorah, rather like a tree of life. It has 7 candles and 2 angels at the bottom. Seven Chakras. The Vision of the 7 Golden Candlesticks by St. John of Patmos, author of the biblical book of Revelation. The chakras are represented by 7 stars in the hand of Christ, and by the 7 candlesticks. Blake was commissioned to engrave and copy this design, which had been drawn by another artist. Blake's subtle detailing of the hands and cloud formations bring the engraving to life. Seven deities or 7 angels. Jesus routing the rebel angels. Then war broke out in heaven. Satan was hurled down. He was hurled to the earth and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Christ." Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 to 10. 7 spirits of God and 7 seals. In this picture of the 24 elders casting their crowns before the divine throne. Refer to chapters 4 and 5 of the book of Revelation. At the bottom of the picture we have the heads of the 7 spirits of God, with tongues of flame coming out of their sahasrara. On the throne God holds a scroll with 7 seals. Seven deities, or 7 angels. God answering Job out of the whirlwind. God plus 6 angels in a clockwise formation. Seven deities, or 7 angels. Frontispiece to the Book of Job, invented and engraved by William Blake. Seven chakras and 7 deities. The divine essence from which the 9 spheres originate, one of Blake's illustrations to Dante's Divine Comedy. Note that Blake draws 7 chakras with deities plus the 2 spheres above the Sahasrara, which comes to 9 spheres in all. Sri Mataji, commenting on our subtle system, said, "There are 7 chakras plus 2 on top, which Blake has described, surprisingly, as 9 centres clearly." Seven deities, or 7 angels. God blessing the 7th day. God plus 6 angels or deities. Seven deities, or 7 angels on both sides. Mercy and truth are met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other. Psalm 85, verse 10. Christ, the figure at the bottom left, is a personification of mercy and righteousness. In Blake's writings, Christ's name is always synonymous with mercy. The Virgin Mary, the figure at the bottom right, is a personification of truth and peace. Traditionally, the Virgin Mary has been hailed as the Queen of Peace. As the Holy Spirit, she is the emissary of truth. These 2 deities together hold a golden cross between them. Jesus said, "And the Father shall give you another Comforter, even the Spirit of truth." Gospel of St. John, chapter 14, verses 16 to 17. Seven chakras, or 7 stars, on the left thigh of Albion. Albion is a personification of Great Britain. In this illustration from Jerusalem, he is kneeling on the ground at the front of the picture. Looking at Albion, the sun is on his right thigh and the moon on his left thigh, representing the right and left side sympathetic channels. The 7 stars or chakras on Albion's left thigh were all caught up in the left side, because Albion had been sleeping the sleep of death. The 3 ladies represent Trigunatmika as the 3 gunas, namely the Ida, Pingala and Sushumna channels. In his poetry, Blake referred to the Kundalini as the golden string. For instance, when he wrote, "I give you the end of a golden string, only wind it into a ball. It will lead you in at heaven's gate, built in Jerusalem's wall." The lady on the right of this picture is placed towards Albion's left side, and she is crying at the state of Albion's golden string, or Albion's Kundalini. Her compassion moves her to work on him, and we see her winding the string into a ball, raising Albion's Kundalini. The lady on the left of the picture, at Albion's right side, is working on him just with her attention, to bring his Kundalini up to the Sahasrara. Her index finger points towards the fontanelle area of her Sahasrara. Finally, the lady in the center showers the grace of self-realization on Albion. The poem Jerusalem unfolds during a mythological time when the giants lived amongst the rocks. This explains the strong, stony physique of the characters. Chapter 4. Spirals and Kundalini. Myriads of Kundalinis and vibrations seen in this miraculous photograph, taken looking towards the stage during a Sahadža yoga music program in Ganapatipule, India. The serpent as a symbol of the Kundalini. The Kundalini is a spiritual energy that rises within the central nervous system in a spiral shape, like a coiled serpent. In the traditional interpretation of the Book of Genesis, the serpent became synonymous with temptation. However, in Hinduism, the serpent can be used as a symbol of the Kundalini, thus worthy of worship. A serpent or spiral of the Kundalini. Eve and the serpent. In this painting of Eve and the serpent represents the spiraling Kundalini. A serpent or spiral of the Kundalini. Moses erecting the brazen serpent. And the Lord said unto Moses, Make a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole. When anyone who is bitten by a serpent looks at it, that person will live. Book of Numbers, chapter 21, verses 5 to 9. A spiral or kundalini. The kundalini as the manuscript of heaven. Showing a scene from the Last Judgment in Blake's illustration to a line of poetry by Edward Young. A spiral or kundalini. Ezekiel's vision of the cherubim and eyed wheels. A whirlwind was coming, a great cloud with raging fire. From within it came the likeness of 4 living creatures. Each one had 4 faces and 4 wings. A wheel was on the earth beside each living creature, as it were, a wheel within a wheel. The rims were so high, they were awesome and full of eyes. The spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Above the firmament, over their heads, was a throne with a man of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 4 to 28. A spiral or kundalini. Ezekiel's vision of the wheels of the living creatures. From Blake's illustration to a line of poetry by Edward Young. Orb above orb, circle in circle, wheel within wheel. A spiral or kundalini. The parable of the Good Samaritan. Blake shows the Good Samaritan with a cup in his hand, like the Holy Grail, and on that cup a serpent or kundalini motif. The spiral of the kundalini. Christ's third temptation. Gospel of St. Matthew. Blake's vision shows on the right, next to Christ, the big spiral of the kundalini overcoming Satan. A spiral in the shape of Sri Ganesha. The expulsion of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. Epilogue of James Hervey's Meditations upon the Tomb. A spiral path with deities and biblical patriarchs along the way, culminating in a figure of God sitting in judgment at the very top. A spiral or kundalini. Jacob's ladder. And Jacob dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place. This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Genesis chapter 28, verses 11 to 17. The sun at the top of this painting is a symbol of Jesus Christ, and Jesus said, "I am the gate. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved." Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Jesus is the Son of Man and the gate of heaven. The Kundalini will only enter into the Sahasrara, or heaven, when Christ at the Agnya Chakra allows the Kundalini to pass through. In this painting, The Heavenly Dream of Catherine of Aragon, a spiral of angels is seen crowning the head of Catherine of Aragon as she lies on her bed, seen here in the lower centre of the painting. The Kundalini-like spiral starts from an inverted triangle similar to the shape of the sacrum bone. The triangle is created by 4 angels at the very bottom of the painting, plus the reclining Catherine. The spiral of the Kundalini. Milton controlling the elements. This image is the frontispiece to Milton, a poem in 2 books by William Blake. An extract from a lecture of Sri Mataji. In Sahadža Yoga, you can use the vibrations on your hands to control the elements, stop the rain, or change the direction of the wind. End of Part 2 of Glimpses of Sahaj Yoga in William Blake's paintings. To follow next time, Glimpses of Sahaj Yoga in William Blake's paintings, Part 3. Part 3 looks at Blake's paintings of deities. This includes Sri Ganesha, Sri Bhairava, Jesus Christ, Athena, Trigunatmika, the Adi Shakti, the Holy Spirit, and other deities.